Today we will take the lecture on ventral hernia. So ventral hernia is any protrusion through the abdominal wall with the exception of hernia through the inguinofemoral region is defined as ventral hernia. Insular hernia is 80% and primary defect in abdominal fascia causing umbilical hernia, epigastric hernia, paraumbilical hernia or spigelian hernia are grouped under ventral hernias. Any protrusion many different conditions represent umbilical hernia. They differ by each other in pathophysiology and age of incidence. Omphalocele and gastroschisis at birth, umbilical hernia of infant and children, and acquired umbilical hernia of adult and older. Omphalocele or gastroschisis, 1 in 6,000 births. Gastroschisis is a congenital anomaly characterized by defect in the anterior abdominal wall through which the abdominal contents freely fall. Omphalocele is congenital birth defect that involves the umbilical cord itself. Organs remain enclosed in the visceral peritoneum. This is difference between gastroschisis and omphalocele. In gastroschisis, the intestines are outside the abdomen through a hole in the abdomen, while in omphalocele, the intestine, liver, and other organs remain outside the abdomen, but they are present in the sac. Omphalocele is caused by error in the embryonic development. At early fetal life, midgut is temporarily herniated outside the abdomen at the umbilicus. Midgut later re-enters the abdomen and opening of the abdominal wall is closed. The failure of the midgut to return and re-enter the abdomen leads to omphalocele. Management of omphalocele is small defects may be closed primarily soon after birth. Large defects, there are 4 techniques. First, non-operative. Second is skin flap closures. Third is stage closure, and fourth is primary closure. This is how before operation, and this is after operation. Congenital umbilical hernias. The normal umbilicus, there is dimpling, skin dimple is seen in the umbilicus. The scar of linea alba is tethered to the skin. This is how a normal umbilicus looks like. In congenital umbilical hernia, the umbilical scar fails to form or is weak. The abdominal contents bulge through the weak spot and evert the umbilicus. This is how a umbilical hernia looks like. Naturally, the vast majority of the congenital hernia disappears spontaneously during the first few years of life, up to 2 years. It is difficult to believe that a large defect will close over in an active child, but this is the usual course of the events. Umbilical hernia develops due to the absence of umbilical fascia or incomplete closure of umbilical defect. It can be congenital or acquired. Acquired through the weak umbilical scar. Congenital will be present few months after birth, which is present as a swelling in the umbilical region, which increases during crying. The treatment is initially conservative. Indications for surgery is persist after 2 years of age and if the size is more than 2 centimeters or if it's an acquired hernia. Treatment of infantile umbilical hernia is conservative treatment is indicated with less than 2 years. Just reassurance of the patients as 95% of the hernias will disappear spontaneously and rarely strangulate. Surgical treatment is indicated if persists at 2 years of the age or older. It is unlikely to resolve and herniorrhaphy is indicated. This is how an incision is taken. Infraumbilical smiling incision is taken. The umbilicus is deepened to dissect out the sac from the umbilicus. Then the sac is opened and the contents are reduced and the muscle is sutured with interrupted suture and the incision is closed. The indication for mesh repair is if the defect is more than 4 centimeters, there are multiple defects. This lacks abdominal wall or in recurrent cases. Coming to umbilical hernia in adults, this is an acquired true umbilical hernia. The umbilical scar is stretched by a raised intra-abdominal pressure and the umbilical everts. This is how it looks like. A true umbilical hernia comes through the umbilical scar. It is not common in adults and usually secondary to raised intra-abdominal pressure. But the common causes of an acquired umbilical hernia are pregnancy and ascites. The local physical signs of the hernia are identical to those described for the congenital variety. Paraumbilical hernia. Large paraumbilical hernia partially obscured by a very fatty abdominal wall. It gives a classical crescentic shape to the umbilicus. The hernia orifice is at the side of the umbilical scar. So the sac bulges out besides the umbilicus, turning it into a crescent-shaped slit. It is a protrusion through the linea alba. It could be just above, which is called a supraumbilical hernia, or it could be just below the umbilicus, which is called as infraumbilical hernia. Male to female ratio is 1:5. Therefore, it's more common in women. Overweight patients, ages of 35 to 50 years, and repeated pregnancy. Symptoms are commonest symptoms are discomfort and a swelling. Sometimes they present complaining of pain or discomfort around the umbilicus, which is made worse by prolonged standing or strenuous exercise. And if it's large, one causes dragging pain because of its weight. Strangulation is common. Strangulation is common, but the usual contents in this case are extraperitoneal fat or omentum. So even strangulation occurs, the bowel is not obstructed. General examination, the patient is quite likely to be obese and may have other hernia and generalized abdominal wall laxity. The shape is classically make the umbilicus crescent shape if it's so near the umbilicus, but not in obese patient and in large one. Composition of the lump is firm as it usually contains omentum. If it contains bowel, it is soft and resonant to percussion. If the hernia can be reduced, the firm fibrous edge of the defect in the linea alba is easily to felt. It may vary in size from a few millimeters in diameter to a defect big enough to admit your hand. Now, paraumbilical hernia management, they may strangulate, so need surgery. The difference between umbilical and paraumbilical hernia is the umbilical hernia, the abdominal content bulges out through the weak umbilical scar, while paraumbilical hernia, herniation through the linea alba above or below the umbilicus. In umbilical hernia, it is everted, umbilicus is everted. The umbilicus is crescent shape in paraumbilical. The entire fundus of sac is covered by umbilicus in umbilical hernia. Only half of the fundus is covered by umbilicus and remaining adjacent seen in paraumbilical hernia. In umbilical hernia, it could be congenital or acquired, but paraumbilical hernias are always acquired. SAT is a important precipitating factor in umbilical hernia, while in paraumbilical hernia, obesity and lax abdominal wall are factors. In umbilical hernia, neck of the sac is wide. In paraumbilical hernia, neck of the sac is narrow. A congenital type can wait up to 4 years for spontaneous closure, while paraumbilical hernia always needs surgery. Now, can you identify this hernia? This is above the umbilicus, between the xiphisternum and the umbilicus. So this is an epigastric hernia. This occurs through the linea alba, anywhere between the xiphoid process and the umbilicus, usually midway between these structures. It's usually has protrusion of the extraperitoneal fat. That's why called as fatty hernia of the linea alba. The mouth of the hernia is rarely large enough to permit a portion of the hollow viscus to enter it. Consequently, either the sac is empty or it contains a small portion of the greater omentum. The pathophysiology of the epigastric hernia is it is more likely to result of a weakened linea alba due to the abnormal desiccation of the fibers of the aponeurosis. That's why an epigastric hernia is the direct result of sudden strain, tearing of the interlacing fibers of the linea alba. The patients are often manual laborers between 30 to 45 years of age. The clinical features are mostly symptomless, painful attacks of local pain, worse on physical exertion and tenderness to touch and light clothing. Then there could be referred pain. The pain is often associated with eating, so the patient calls it indigestion and makes a self-diagnosis of peptic ulceration. Likely explanation for this is referred pain that the fatty hernia is nipped by the linea alba on leaning forward in the sitting position, adopted at the dining table. So the patient thinks it should be a gastritis or acidity, indigestion. On examination, feel firm, don't usually have a cuff impulse, cannot be reduced, sometimes impossible to distinguish between them and from lipoma. Only the typical position suggesting the correct diagnosis epigastric hernia. Treatment is indicated when the considerable symptoms occur. Treatment through a vertical incision sac is dissected. Defect is closed with non-absorbable interrupted sutures, and large defect is supported with preperitoneal mesh repair. Now, recurrent hernias. There is breakdown of a hernia repair and herniation of bowel omentum through the previously operated site of hernia repair. Statistics are recurrence with lap herniaplasty is 1.6%, recurrence with shoulder repair is 2%, recurrence with open non-shoulder repair is 5.4%. Occur within first post-operative year. Recurrence in recurrent hernia repair is 35%. Intrinsic weakness of the collagen floor due to open hernia repair. The obesity, chronic constipation, and cough are the cause. Incomplete dissection, missed lipomas, missed hernia are the cause. Then inadequate reduction of indirect and direct hernia site. There could be technical errors committed during the repair, like insufficiently sized prosthesis, improper placement, improper fixation, or mesh displacement. As a result of complication, infection, or a hematoma. The symptoms are pain or discomfort in the groin, swelling over the previous surgical site or near it, more prominent on upright position, straining or cupping, may extend into the scrotum. Hello. The danger signs due to the obstruction are severe pain, nausea, vomiting, skin changes over the swelling like blue, purple, or dark colored. There could be history of not passing stools or gas. Complications of recurrence are infection, incarcerated hernia, contents of the hernia trapped obstructing the bowel, causing nausea, vomiting, and history of not passing stools or gas. There could be strangulation, an incarcerated hernia with compromised blood supply to contents of the hernia. This requires an emergency surgery. Prevention is maintain healthy weight, emphasize high fiber diet, avoid heavy lifting, then stop smoking, which causes chronic cough and collagen disorders. Treatment is laparoscopic repair of recurrent hernia with mesh has better outcome since muscle integrity is maintained due to minimal dissection of the muscles. Open posterior approach with placement of the second prosthesis or open repair of the hernia associated with high recurrence, recurrence of the hernia. The incisional hernias. Here you can see the anatomy of the abdominal wall. The linea is formed by the external oblique aponeurosis, which splits to form the linea alba and join in midline to form the linea alba. Then herniation through the weak abdominal scar of the previous surgery. It is common in old age and obese individuals. Predisposing factors are vertical scar, midline scar, or abdominal scar may injure the nerves of the abdominal muscles. The scar of the major surgery is like biliary or pancreatic. Scar of emergency surgery like peritonitis, acute abdomen, faulty technique of closure, poor nutritional status of patient, presence of cleft tuberculosis, jaundice, anemia, hypoproteinemia, malignancy, immunosuppression, smoking in post-operative period, and causes which increase the intra-abdominal pressure like BPH, staining, stricture urethra or rectum, and ascites. Factors responsible for developing an incisional hernia. Vertical incision has got higher chances of incisional hernia than horizontal incision. Layered closure of abdomen has got higher chances than a single layer closure. Continuous closure has got higher chances than interrupted closure. Using absorbable suture material has got higher chances of hernia than non-absorbable sutures. Emergency surgical wound has higher chances of than elective surgical wound. Laparotomy for peritonitis, acute abdomen, and trauma can commonly cause incisional hernia. Drainage to the main laparotomy wound may precipitate formation of incisional hernia. Then chronic cough, smoking, obstructive uropathy, constipation can precipitate incisional hernia. Then there could be diabetes, old age, malnutrition, malignancies, anemia, hypoproteinemia, jaundice, ascites, liver disease, uremia, steroid therapy, immunosuppressive disease are other precipitating factors. In all, you can divide the causes of incisional hernia into patient factors, surgeon factors, and now the clinical features are swelling in the scar region, pain, impulse on cuffing, gurgling sound. Often bowel peristalsis may be visible under the skin. Eventually, features of irreducibility, obstruction, strangulation is seen. Hernia is common in lower abdomen. It may be small or large, huge or massive. Here is how a incisional hernia looks like. You can see the incision and the protruded contents outside the abdominal wall. Its extent and location, whether healed primarily or secondarily, skin over the skin and swelling is noted. Details of swelling, which expansile, impulse on cuffing, and examination both in lying down and standing are done. Gap cannot be assessed in an irreducible hernia. Then complications are irreducibility, obstruction, strangulation mostly due to large defect. Then it could be incarceration, loss of abdominal domain. When more than 30% of the abdominal contents are outside the abdomen, it causes loss of abdominal domain. Then respiratory dysfunction, paradoxical respiration, abdominal motion. Then bowel edema, stasis of the splanchnic venous system, urinary retention, and constipation. The abdominal compartment syndrome and acute respiratory failure, return of displaced viscera. When you try to return the displaced viscera and after operation, that could lead to abdominal compartment syndrome. Preventive measures are reduction of weight in obese before elective procedures, treat any respiratory disease like chronic bronchitis, very careful closure of abdomen. All precautions to prevent immediate post-operative wound infection should be taken. Conservative management, and in elderly not fit for surgery due to general condition. Surgeries for incisional hernia, mesh repair, commonly done and ideal, either sublay or onlay method or combined. And Reeves-Toppa method of placing mesh between posterior rectus sheath and rectus muscle. Laparoscopically can also be placed layer by layer closure, Cantill's operation, double breasting of the rectus sheath. This is compartment separation technique. When the hernia is large and you cannot bring back all the edges of the abdomen together, so a component separation technique is used. In this lateral incision is taken over the external oblique and transversalis, pull back the muscles between to close the defect. And there is keel operation, not commonly used now. Sac is inverted using continuous interrupted non-absorbable sutures. The hernial sac is not opened. Fundus of the sac is knitted with non-absorbable sutures and pushed into the peritoneal cavity. The cross section of this looks like the keel of the ship. It is called as keel operation. And Nuttall's operation, not commonly used now, done for lower midline incisional hernia. Recti attachments are detached from the pubic bones and are crossed over to fix to the opposite pubic bone so as to create a firm abdomen, supported by cross recti muscles. The prosthetic repair, only technique after primary closure of the facial defect, mesh is placed over the anterior fascia. Advantage is no direct contact with the viscera. The disadvantage is large subcutaneous dissection leads more chances of seroma formation. Superficial location of the mesh, more prone for infections. Then inlay technique, the interposition of prosthetic mesh between the facial edges is very high recurrence rate. And there is sublay, underlay technique, prosthetic mesh placed below the facial components. This is how onlay, inlay, sublay, and IPOM is used. In onlay, it is above the rectus. Inlay is between the to recti. Sublay is below the rectus muscle, and apom is intraperitoneal. In retromuscular technique, also called as Ristopa retrorectus repair, placement of the mesh under the rectus muscle and above the posterior rectus sheath. The advantages is it is intra-abdominal forces hold the prosthesis against the muscles. The forces that create the hernia now are used to prevent its recurrence. This is how retrorectus repair is done. Mesh is placed below the rectus muscle. So the pressure from inside helps to keep the mesh in position. This is intraperitoneal mesh repair. Intraperitoneal mesh placement. The dual type of composite mesh can be placed in intraperitoneal position. Normally, in open surgery, we use polypropylene mesh. That cannot be used intraperitoneally because it can cause adhesions with the bowel and cause obstruction. So, the mesh used for intraperitoneal mesh is composite mesh, about 4 cm beyond the facial defect and fixed to the abdominal walls. The margins of the mesh should be extend 4 cm beyond the facial defect to prevent recurrence. The laparoscopic repair, the wound complications, recurrence rates, and pain, placing the mesh intraperitoneally under the defect. Dual mesh or composite meshes are in use. Procedure is done under general anesthesia. Begin careful. The steps are begin careful adhesion lysis. Blunt and sharp dissection is used. Avoid use of cautery. Full extent of defect should be identified. Beware of presence of multiple defects. Once the defect is measured, a mesh is selected that provides at least 3 cm of overlap around the defect. Some surgeons use a 4 to 6 cm overlap. This may be particularly important in the recurrent hernia or in morbidly obese patients. Dual or 4-layered mesh with no adhesive surface facing towards the abdominal contents is placed to prevent adhesions. All 4 corners are sutured using transfacial fixation. Tackers are placed all around at a distance of 5 mm to 1 cm. Now the advantages are is proper visualization of the entire abdomen, avoidance of unnecessary dissection, identification of multiple Swiss cheese defects, less recurrence rates, short hospital stay, less morbid surgery, faster recovery, and it is better in obese patients. Complications can be there could be prolonged ileus, seroma, suture site pain, or there could be intestinal or bladder injury, there could be cellulitis or trocar site, infection, hematoma or post-operative bleeding, respiratory distress, or trocar site herniation.